This is a reading of The Oblivious Man by Max XD, read by me, the author. This story was made without the usage of AI, and it's a totally original work of fiction. I hope you will enjoy it. The Oblivious Man. A few days ago, on my way home, I was greeted with the sight of a curious fellow gaily strutting down Main Street. It was a surprisingly slow day, so among the small amount of people going about their business, he caught my eye immediately. He wore a suit which seemed to fit his form perfectly, and which had an aura of cleanliness about it, as if it was repellent to even the tiniest speck of dust, an aura also extending to his black leather shoes. His attire was complemented by his face, which had an expression of such joyous ease on it, I doubt even the most ardently bitter crone could have found any bit of attitude to criticize. I evidently must have been staring at him, as he nodded towards me politely before making his way over, and before I had the chance to stammer an apology for my indecency, inviting me to a tea. We sat down at a nearby cafe and easily fell into idle chatter. I found his way of speaking to be just as pleasant as his appearance, and, curious as I was, asked many a question which he, in his easygoing manner, seemed all too happy to answer. But while one might expect a certain closure from inquiring any number of facts about a person of interest, this man's mystery seemed only to grow. In fact, I came to describe his aloof character with one more adjective: oblivious. When I asked him what he did for a living, he told me he lived by the day. He was oblivious. When I inquired further what he did for work, he told me he didn't work. He was oblivious. When I asked him about money, he told me his father had left him plenty. He was oblivious. When I questioned him who his family was, he told me there were none of them left. He was oblivious. When I asked him about a partner, he told me he had relations, but none of them were serious. He was oblivious. Oblivious to anything and everything. I asked him about his friends, and he told me he kept no such company. He was oblivious. I interrogated him on his opinion of the grey-haired thieves called politicians, and he told me he paid no mind to what didn't directly affect him. He was oblivious. I asked him what he did if anything bad happened to him, and he told me he forgot about it. He was oblivious. Flustered by these peculiar statements, I could not help but ask further if he cared for nothing, feared for no one, was beholden to nobody's whims, and forgot everything unpleasant. Did he truly live a full life? Doubtful as though I was that these were even my own words, since I tried to stay far from even a skin-deep dip into philosophy, he of all men seemed most probable to bring even the layest of men to question the existential. That said, my question seemed to sadden him, as a frown crept into his face, lighting his glowing visage. For the second time in what might not have been a full hour, I felt the need to extend an apology towards this man, but he chatted onward through his evident hurt. Our continued attempts at dialogue soon fell ill though, eventually dying once he got up and generously paid for my tea with money he seemed to have in abundance, but not before agreeing on a date a few days from then, when we shall meet again. He didn't seem too hurt after all, and most surely a fellow that loved to talk, while I remained infinitely curious, so it made sense. Since that day, I haven't quite been able to forget about him, haunted at all hours of the day by brief glimpses of this most unique specimen, seemingly living life by his fullest as judged from the gaiety of his character, while simultaneously not being bound to anything, even his own memories, should it prove to bring him discomfort. I was still undoubtedly fascinated with his aura, but nonetheless felt that there was something queer about him, although I could not tell if that notion had been born naturally, or came about as a result of the revelations brought forward by our conversation. So it was with this strange brew of emotions that I found myself back at the same place of our first meeting on the second date we had agreed to. Given his leisurely manner, I paid no mind to him missing the given time, expecting him to be late by quite a margin. That he didn't show up at all surprised me. Once the surprise had cooled off, I found myself in anger towards this man who had so rudely cut short my pursuit of more knowledge about his singular state of mind, but after thinking it over, I found it made sense. The last question I asked had hurt him, and so he did me, as he did every so minor inconvenience, and forgot about me. In my rumination over the situation, the subject of philosophy, which I don't want to waste any time on, reared its ugly head again, and I almost considered if a life without negative experiences, when one's character is usually informed by the entirety of influences, was truly a full life, but quickly decided that my mind is not scrambled enough for such antics. I decided to bring this experience down to paper the day I saw the Oblivious Man again, and this time striding down a different lane. The air about him was still the same, and I didn't approach him, a little voice in the back of my head telling me that he wouldn't recognize me anyway. Truth be told, I might also be a little jealous of him. Seeing his smile today, he seemed happy. Unaware, but happy. That concludes The Oblivious Man by Max XD. This was the first short story I've ever decided to finish and publish. I really like writing, and I hope this story was not as bad as I imagine it being. If you did enjoy it, I would greatly appreciate it if you left a comment or a like, or maybe subscribe to my channel. And even if you didn't enjoy it, then you could maybe leave a few paragraphs of constructive criticism down in the comments, which I would surely be incorporating into my next writings, because I intend to do this again for purpose of catharticism. Is that a word? I have no idea. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope I see you in another video. Bye!